let's talk about this list, okay? Because it's important. So when we talk about this list of schools, and it sounds like your school is the University of Phoenix, when we talk about the list and borrower defense, the borrower defense to repayment program that allows you to get your federal student loans discharged, depending on certain misconduct that happened that led you to take on federal student debt to pay for your education at these institutions. The settlement where this list came about, the settlement within itself, these student loan borrowers, their loans were not discharged based on the conduct. Well, the conduct has something to do, the conduct is the basis of them putting in the borrower's defense application, but the discharge in it within itself is based on how the Department of Education handled processing their application. So when we have this list in your school, the University of Phoenix, not only is the University of Phoenix mentioned in the sweet settlement because there were other student loan borrowers who put in an application against the school, but also the Department of Education discharged a bunch of student loan borrowers who attended the University of Phoenix during a certain time frame. They qualified for their loans to be automatically discharged. Now, there are some who didn't put applications in that may have been overlooked, but depending on the time frame that you attended, you would have qualified for your loans to be automatically discharged. But to say this, when we talk about the borrower defense program and where it is now, even if your school is on this list, because the basis of that settlement had nothing to do with necessarily the school, even though the application were put in against the school, but these borrowers, their loans were discharged based on how the Department of Education handled their applications. So that is where these discharges come into play. So what that means for you now, because unfortunately, the settlement is closed. So anything that took place with the settlement, any clauses or anything of that nature, you are not privy to it. You're not obligated to any of those things, which means that now you have to understand how the application is structured now, which means what is your claim against the University of Phoenix? So you have to know what your claim is against the University of Phoenix, because the settlement within itself is not a basis for you to get your loans discharged unless you were a part of the settlement. But unfortunately, you're not. But what that means for you, like I said, you have to know what is it that the University of Phoenix did to you? What is your claim against this school? And be able to state that, be able to tell the Department of Education what exactly took place and why whatever it is that happened at the school, why you took on federal student loans in order to attend the school, and based off that information, this is why you took on those loans. And then also the reason, again, why is it that you should have your student loans discharged based on this information that led you to take on these loans? What did they do to you? So it does help because your school is mentioned in a settlement, and of course the Department of Education brought their own action against them due to the Federal Trade Commission and things that they found. But that would just be supporting, that would just support your application. But the basis of your application still needs to be your own story and your own claim of what happened while you attended the school. But you are still very much able to put in an application. It's not too late. The program existed prior to the Sweet versus McMahon settlement. The Sweet versus McMahon settlement did not create the borrower defense to repayment program. It may have more or less made it more visual. I don't know the proper term I'm looking for right now, but it did not create the program. The program has always been there. The program is still there, and you can absolutely apply if you have a claim against the University of Phoenix.